Later that night, I decided to surprise Gideon with a little lacy demo I picked up from the store today. I got into the shower. I took the time to moisturize my skin really good. I piled my locks up in a messy bun on the top of my head. Then I put on a layer of pink tinted strawberry tasting lip gloss. When I left out my bathroom, it was to find Gideon laying on my bed shirtless. He still had on his jeans and his boots, and he was laying there reading the scriptures. When he saw me, his eyes widened and he jumped up out of the bed as if the mattress had just caught fire. I frowned at the distraught look on his face. I looked down at my nightgown. Yeah, it was racy, but it wasn't that bad. I mean, the ones he bought me back at the armory were far worse. SaafiYah, he cried, like a man whose soul had been tortured. Then he hit the floor and began to do push-ups, like a madman. SaafiYah, go quickly, change, he said in between the push-ups. My mouth fell open. What the world? I put my hand on the slight swell of my stomach. Oh my goodness, did I look gross? He shook his head as he began to do one-arm push-ups. No, baby, you look good, real good. Baby, quick, go change. Put on a sweater and his eyes hungrily raked over me as he pushed up and down on his muscled arms. The man had gone mad. Put on some sweatpants. Please, baby. Okay, I said before I went into my closet. Utterly confused, I changed into a sweater and a pair of sweatpants. When I came back out, he was still doing the one-arm push-ups. He looked up at me and a look of utter relief washed over his face. I stood there not sure. Not sure of what, you ask? Not sure of anything. What had just happened? Why was he freaking out? Was it me? He jumped to his feet. Don't look like that, baby, he said, walking to me. You don't want me? I asked, barely keeping my tears at bay. His face looked tortured. More than anything, you just don't know how much. Well, why did you make me change? He held his head down, his shoulders slumped. Lying, he hissed. I frowned. Okay, this was weird. Lying, I said. In order to torture me, because he twisted. He banned me from making love to you, baby. He looked so miserable. I smiled. Yeah, I knew exactly what he was talking about. I had almost forgot that was something Lion did with all the men he trained. I laughed, remembering how tortured poor Shlomo was when he and Stormy had first moved out here. Baby, it's not funny. I'm in physical pain here, Gideon moaned. You'll be alright, 'cause I'm gonna help you. A few years ago, Stormy and Shlomo went through the same thing. How was it for him? He asked. I shook my head. Not well. But because of Stormy's special help, he was able to make it through. One of his eyebrows lifted. Oh yeah? And what made her help so special? I smiled at him. Well, according to Stormy, I held up both of my hands. And these are her words, so don't stone me. She just put a lock on the cookie jar. Gideon frowned at me. Nah, I ain't feeling that. I don't want my cookies locked up. I put my hand on his shoulder. Baby, what you are doing is very important. Yah is going to use you to help his people. We all must sacrifice, so I'm sorry. The cookie jar has been locked. I blinked up at him, biting the inside of my jaw to keep from laughing. He stared down at me through narrowed eyes. But what's to keep me from breaking the lock? He asked, pulling me close lowering his head to my neck, where he began to open mouth kiss the spot just underneath my ear, I moaned. "Better yet, what's to keep you from opening the lock and just giving me the cookies?" he whispered so close to my ear that my toes curled. Y'all, he had a very good point, because as he kissed my neck, I nearly forgot all about our goals. Well, let me show you how y'all work. Right then, my dad called up to my room. He rarely came upstairs, but hearing him call was enough to throw cold water all over the flame Gideon was lighting. I pushed out of his arms. "Yah, my brother, Yah will help us," I told him before I opened my bedroom door and left out to see what my dad needed. And so began Gideon's affliction. Over the next couple of weeks, I was to learn a lot about my new husband. However, the biggest surprise, y'all, was finding out that underneath all that hard, violent exterior that was Gideon lay, well, Monroe. Yes, he was a grown Monroe. I'll tell you what I mean. The next week after Teresa came in town, we found the perfect place for us, just down the way from Stormy and Shlomo's place. It was perfect. The basement was big and spacious. Teresa said that Gideon and Monroe could fill it with all their exercise equipment and their toys. There was a big kitchen and a huge bedroom right off the kitchen that Teresa loved. She fell in love with it instantly. But what put the icing on the cake for me was the garage. It was 2 levels, and whoever had built this place had turned it into like a little workshop. Perfect for me. I was so happy Teresa was here. Where the men had been no help, she was a wealth of information. Imams, I'm telling you, they are the heart of our community. Anyway, after we found the place, everything else happened fairly quickly. Chuckling, I realized that all Gideon had been waiting for me to do was decide which place I wanted. Then he stepped in and handled the rest. Within a week, we had keys. Then, Teresa and I went shopping. I had a field day taking her around Chicago, showing her the sights. We were even able to drag Stormy and Nuria with us. By the time that day was over, we had furnished the whole house. And over the next few days, everything was delivered. Gideon was right about his aunt. After she found out I was expecting, she clucked around me like a mother hen. Y'all, did I tell you how much I love Teresa? Without her, I could have not done it all. She told me, though, that I needed to tell my father the truth. She said it was really silly that Gideon and I didn't sleep in our own bed, in our own home at night. And she was right. What we was doing was ludicrous. During the day, while Gideon trained, I spent my time at my new home because I loved it. And every night, I went home to my dad. And every night, Gideon climbed through my window. One thing was for sure, we could not continue this way. The good part about it was, I think I was going to be able to tell my father really soon. You see, he had taken a like to Monroe. In fact, Monroe spent most of his extra time where he wasn't at the gym training or, of course, following around behind Anataya with my dad. He helped him with the yard work, and they had even started a project on the attic. My dad had got it in his head that he wanted to turn the attic into a study for him. And he had Paul Monroe knocking out walls and everything. And when Gideon and his men were in training, my dad had even had them joining the fun. So I was real pleased with the way things were going. Now, let me tell you how I discovered that Gideon was so much like his son. Or, hey, I guess Monroe was like Gideon, since Gideon came first. something began to happen between my dad and my husband. Some kind of rivalry. Let me give you an example. One afternoon, the fellas was taking a break from the work they were doing on the attic. My dad and Gideon were particularly fond of what we have now coined around here, Monroe sandwiches. These sandwiches were ridiculous. They had like 4 pieces of bread, a crazy amount of lunch meat, several slices of cheese, just ridiculous. Anyway, Gideon, my dad, and Monroe are sitting at the table eating. While I was laying some rosebuds and rose hip leaves out to dry that Nuria had just dropped off on my dehydration tray. SaafiYah, my dad says. Princess, Daddy bought you a few more containers, baby. I know how quickly you go through them, and I don't want you to run out. Thanks, Dad, I told him. Now, at the time I had been a little distracted, concentrating as I was on the task I was performing. So if I found it a little strange that my dad had just bought me containers for my concoctions out of the clear blue, I just ignored it. However, the next day, the guys are in the kitchen again, taking a break from the attic. Today they are eating something that Teresa sent over for them. Gideon, you have got to thank your aunt for me. This stew is just mouth-watering, my father told Gideon. I was sitting at the stove slowly melting cocoa butter in a pan over low heat. I sure will, sir, Gideon said. Then he sits back in his chair and says, Princesita. My hand comes to a complete halt. See, I don't have to see it, but I know my dad has now lowered his spoon from his mouth and is now staring at Gideon as if he had lost his mind. And I don't have to see it, but I know there's a huge, mischievously goofy grin on Monroe's face. What I did have to see was Gideon, to see how far his mind had gone. Slowly, I turned to look at him. He's leaning back in his chair, relaxed. In front of him is his empty stew bowl. He lifts his hand and Monroe gets up from the table, leaves out of the kitchen, and a few minutes later, he comes back in with 2 huge boxes in his hand. He disappears again, comes back with 2 more huge boxes, sits those besides the other 2. He repeats this one more time. I took the liberty of buying you a few boxes of containers, cause he looks at my father. I'm going to make sure you never run out. Then he winks at my dad. That's not the worst part. After he does that, he looks at Monroe. Take notes, boy. That's how it's done. Monroe, crazy but then proceeds to hold out his hand for his dad to clap it, as if their favorite team had just scored the winning point. I stood there fuming. I couldn't believe them. When he finally looks up at me from his gloating fest, and he sees that the anger on my face, he holds up both of his hands. What? He asks as if he didn't already know. His response reminded me so much of his son. It was ridiculous. Later that evening, when he climbed through my window, I was sitting on the bed waiting for him with my arms folded. He knew he was getting ready to hear it too. Baby, look, don't look at me like that. Lion tried to kill me tonight. I'm in pain all over. I need a hot shower, and then your healing, baby, not your anger. He kicked off his boots and lifted his shirt over his head. Then he went into the bathroom and turned on the shower. When he got out, I was still waiting. He lay down in the bed next to me. You want to read some scriptures with me? He asked, blinking up at me with innocent eyes. I had to bite my lip to keep from laughing at him. So, I said instead, what was all that about early between you and my dad? He sat there. I could see his brain racing. Look, babe, I'm a man. You my woman. I got to be the one you need. Not some dude that, oh my goodness, my dad, Gideon? Yeah, he said, as if he was justified. And this is when I realized that Gideon did not have all the tools in his toolbox. Gideon, that's my dad. He been taking care of me my whole life. SaafiYah, I'm your man. It's now my turn to take care of you for the rest of your life. I looked at him. How can I argue with that? Slowly, I straddled his lap. Baby, I know that, I told him, as I began to rub a masculine lavender liniment I made for him into his big shoulders. But I need you to behave just a little while longer. I'm going to tell my dad soon, I promise. He moaned as I applied pressure to his sore muscles. Okay, yeah, I'll be good. Just speak for me, please. I smiled. Some things will never change, I thought as I began to speak. And on that day, Yehoshua went out of the house and sat by the sea. And a large crowd was gathered together to him, so that he went into the boat and sat down. And all the crowd stood on the beach, and he spoke to them much in parables, saying, See, the sower went out to sow, and as he sowed, some indeed fell by the wayside, and the birds came and devoured them. And others fell on rocky places, where they did not have much soil, and immediately they sprang up, because they had no depth of soil. But when the sun was up, they were scorched, and because they had no root, they withered. And the others fell among thorns, and the thorns came up and choked them. And others fell on good soil, and yielded a crop, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. So, Gideon said he would be good, but he did not. This little rivalry he had developed with my father continued. That was not too funny to me. However, his rivalry with Lion was hilarious. Okay, so do you remember the night Gideon ate my food for the first time? Well, apparently Lion had gloated about the fact that I was a horrible cook to Gideon, but he did it in a way that made Gideon hungry for revenge. So, after we got settled in the house, Gideon set about repaying him. We invited Lion and Nuria and their children over for dinner, as well as Shlomo and Stormy and their little ones. Gideon had bought a bunch of steaks, and Iman had prepared them all except for one, which he told me to knock myself out. But he told me that whatever I do to make sure it was well done, extra even. And afterwards, after everybody got there, Gideon, who was sitting back relaxed on super chill mode, gave me the signal to begin my part of this trip. Okay guys, can I get everyone's attention? Everybody settled down and looked at me. I smiled really big, really selling it. I have been cooking all day, and as you know, I really love to cook, and it gives me so much pleasure, and I'm just so pleased when you guys enjoy my cooking. The whole room stiffened. They began to look around at each other, probably seriously confused, because the aroma that was going through the house was mouth-watering. You see, it's true I have been cooking all day, helping Iman. However, they didn't need to know that. And I am pleased to announce that dinner is ready. I clapped my hands together. And If you will please follow me, we can begin. Gideon walked over to me, wrapping his arm around my waist. How did I do at announcing our very first dinner party as a family? I asked him, nice and loud. You did wonderful, Princess Issa. Beaming, I turned and led the way into the dining room. In front of everybody's chair was their name. Yes, assigned seatings was important. Lion sat at one end of the table, Gideon at the opposite end. All the sides that we had prepared were already on the table. I went into the kitchen to get the steaks. Imai was straightening up the kitchen. Just leave it for now, Imai. Come eat. I will send Monroe and Dawid in here to help later. Imai shook her head. No, mija. You guys go without me. I'm going to finish here and then have me a cup of tea in my room. It's almost time for Jeopardy. I chuckled as I picked up the plate of steaks. Imai was serious about Jeopardy. Okay, but call me if you need me, I told her, as I headed out the kitchen with the plate. I put a steak on everybody's plate, including the one I had made for Lions. Then I sat next to Gideon. After Shlomo blessed the food, Monroe, Gideon, and I dived in. Everybody else was really cautious. Nuria was the first to cut a piece of meat and put it in her mouth. Oh, she said as she chewed the garlicly butter creation that Imai had flawlessly made. Saf, girl, this steak is fire. So of course, after she said that, everybody else took a bite. Shlomo and Stormy groaned at the same time. Doda, that's real good, Dawid said. I smiled. Thank you, baby, I told him. However, I almost lost it when my eyes landed on Lion. He chewed as if he was eating a piece of leather. How your steak, Gideon asked as he sliced his steak and put a piece of meat on his mouth. I put a big expecting smile on mine. Yeah, Aki, how's your steak? I asked. Lion looked at Nuria, who for just a moment had closed her eyes to chew her little pieces of perfection. He frowned. I almost lost it. I had to play the chuckle that escaped from between my lips off as a cough. I picked up my water to take a sip as if I was choking. Your steak, Gideon said. How is it? Still chewing the first piece, Lion looked at me, and I planted that silly, I just pray you like it smile on my face. It's, he said around a mouthful of steak. Look, I have to go to the washroom. I'll be right back, he said, getting up from the table and disappearing into the downstairs washroom. Gideon looked at me, and I could see he was barely holding back his own laugh. Seconds later, Lion came back out. He stopped and looked down at Wolf and King, who had been set up with a nice piece of beef that Imai had baked in the oven for them. Frowning, he took it in the way the animals devoured it. Then he took a seat again. You never told me how you like your steak, Gideon said. It's good. His voice shook on the good. I'm so glad you like it. Eat up, I told him. He looked down at his plate as if he had a dead skunk on it. He picked up his knife and fork. Frowning, he looked back at Nuria, who was killing her steak. The look on his face was priceless. He didn't know how she was doing it. In fact, he looked at her different for being able to consume such disgust without barking. In fact, he looked around the table at everybody, wondering how they was doing it. You see, y'all don't even understand. The other steaks were so good that none of them even spoke. And you know how Bruce is. When ain't nobody speaking at the table, it's because they too busy getting down. All except Lion, of course, who at this point was wondering if he was in the Twilight Zone. He put another piece in his mouth and cringed. For a minute, it looked as if he was going to hurl. Slowly he chewed. before, I promise, if anybody had told me this about Lion, I would have never believed it. This you would have to see to believe. He smiled at me as if to say, good. Then he got a funny look on his face, then picked up his napkin and pretended to sneeze in it. Of course, when he removed the napkin, the steak was gone. Real good, SaafiYah, he said, before he put another piece in his mouth. This time, the Negro pretended to cough in the napkin. Now, he had managed to make a good amount of this steak disappear without swallowing not one bit of it, okay? Finally, his gaze lands on Gideon, who at this point was barely keeping a straight face. Gideon nodded as he chewed, as if to say this steak was the best thing he had ever had. Lion's eyes narrowed. He could smell a rat. Baby, let me taste your steak, he asked Nuriah. No, get your own. You got your own, she said as she sprinkled black pepper on her potato. You shouldn't be that way. I always share with you, he told her quietly. No you don't, Lion. You can stop fronting. She stuck her tongue out at him and continued to eat. He turned to Dawid, who, before he could say anything, was already shaking his head. Sorry, Pop, Dawid said. His steak was almost gone anyway. Man, I wasn't gonna ask you for none, no way, Lion told him. And Natalia, can Daddy have a bite of your steak? She nodded her head from where she sat next to Monroe and cut him a nice piece, holding the fork up to his mouth. He gave Nuriah a na-na-na-na look before he ate the steak. As he chewed, his eyes fell back to Gideon. Monroe was the first to blow. Gideon and I followed after. Oh man, that was priceless. I laughed so hard, my side started to hurt. As we filled the others in to where we had digged, they too burst up laughing. The whole time, Lion sat there with that "you got me" smirk on his face. Hey, Ak, what's in your napkin? Slow-mo asked, and we all burst out laughing again. After we all quieted down, Lion's voice filled the room. Yo, Gideon. Hey man, I'm glad you could take a joke, cause earlier I tried to flush half my steak down and now your toilet's broke.